applications of first law of thermodynamics with respect to turbo machines. Okay. So here, if you look at it, let us write what are the types of energies we already studied in our thermodynamics. Okay. If you list it, the first and the foremost energy usually we that come to our mind is actually it is the pressure energy. I think some books they call this as the flow energy because of the drop in the pressure there will be a movement of fluid. That's the thing. So if you try to write in terms of mathematical, it is P into V, where V is the volume, or some of the books they write in terms of P by rho. That is because your density is P. So if I take with respect to specific volume, 1 upon maybe the ratio of your density, 1 upon rho is your specific volume, or 1 upon V is your density. Okay, that already we have studied in your fluid mechanics. Mass per unit volume or whatever it may be. Now, the second type of energy, what we come across in the thermodynamics, kinetic energy. So, the kinetic energy is mainly because of the velocity. So, if you try to write it, actually, this being a vector quantity, it is actually v square by 2. And the third type of energy that comes to our mind is the potential energy, where the fluid is stored in a particular tank or a particular dam or something, and the fluid will be flowing based on, or fluid is stored based on its height actually. So this kind of thing what we come across actually, it is in terms of Z into G, if Z is the height. And the last one is your enthalpy. So is your enthalpy, and if you already we have seen, this is enthalpy is given by mCp into your dt. And if you look into thermodynamics, already we have seen that H is a function of temperature as well as U is also a function of temperature. Why is it so? Why is it so? We know that what we have defined, H is equal to U plus PV. So when I speak of enthalpy, so there is a little bit of internal energy in that, and there is a little bit of pressure energy in that, or the flow component in that. So all these things, all this pressure energy, kinetic energy, potential energy, or enthalpy, all whatever we have studied in thermodynamics can be relevant in turbo machines. We try to deal with head actually. So instead of calling it as pressure energy, we try to represent in terms of head. That is P pressure head, that is P is equal to your maybe rho g h or omega into h or gamma into h, whatever it may be, rho g into h. Okay, this is your pressure head, or rho g is nothing but your specific weight. So few books they write in terms of, so I can write in terms of P is equal to omega into h, or some books they write in terms of gamma into h, where omega or gamma is your specific weight. Then coming to the kinetic energy, I try to write the same thing in terms of kinetic head. So if I try to write in terms of kinetic head actually, so your v square by 2 into g. I'm going to bring in that acceleration due to gravity g, so that I can write the kinetic energy in terms of head. Then if I try to write the potential head, so it will be Z into G divided by G. So this will be only Z actually. Now, when you speak of this 3, most of the turbo machines we try to deal with these 3 energies or 3 heads. Enthalpy is one particular thing. Wherever I come across, wherever the temperature is involved, like in steam turbines, where I have the temperature of the steam entering a particular turbine. So the steam, the steam enters at maybe 800 degrees Celsius, 1000 degrees Celsius. That's one thing. Or I will be dealing with sometimes a gas turbines where at the entry of the turbine, the burnt gases are at some 1500 degrees Celsius or 2000. So under these conditions, I'll try to bring in the enthalpy. So wherever I have the temperature quantity or your working medium has some kind of relevance with respect to temperature, I try to bring in your enthalpy. Otherwise, I'm going to deal with say hydraulic turbines. I have hydraulic turbines or centrifugal pumps at all. There, the pressure head, the kinetic head, and potential head, just these three things are just sufficient. Now, when we try to analyze it actually, so from the first law of thermodynamics point of view, let us try to write a simple open system or a control volume. What is it actually? This is a control volume. Okay, when I have a control volume, what is this actually? This already we have seen that this is my boundary, and along the boundary I have seen there is an interaction. Okay, so what are the two types of interactions which already we have seen or we have studied? So this is one is heat interaction, or we call it as Q, and the other one is the work interaction or W. Fine. Now already we have seen, so this Q can be 0, one condition, and Q is not equal to 0. So when Q is equal to 0, we have seen that kind of condition, we have called it as adiabatic. What is it actually? What do you mean by it actually? Q is equal to 0 means the whole boundary is completely insulated. There is no temperature gradient. I'm not calling it as delta T. It is delta T by that particular, so delta T by delta X. So there is no temperature gradient. But when I tell Q is not equal to 0, there can be heat, there can be interaction. It can flow into the system or out of the system. So this is my system. So when I speak of work interaction, so this also can be work. If it is 0, what will happen? When the work is equal to 0, that means it's neither doing any kind of work or something. So here I have, this can be a negative kind of a work, or this can be a positive kind of work. So positive kind of a work means it is a turbine. So from the turbine, I'm trying to extract the work. So when I speak of a turbo machine like compressor, pump, fan, all those things, I am trying to do work on the system. That means I am trying to, the fluid is getting the energy. So I'm trying to connect this compressor pump to an electric motor, and I'm going to drive it. So that is, it's trying to absorb the work. So in the turbo machines, I have work absorbing machines and work producing machines. Or heat interaction. So ideally speaking, there should not be any heat interaction. That means heat loss, I'm speaking. So your casing should be completely sealed or insulated. Or if there is any heat interaction, it should be negligible. That's how we look at it. Now this being a control volume, so what will happen? The fluid has to, there should be one inlet and one outlet. So I have an inlet and I have an outlet. There can be more than one, but to call that as a control volume, that means a turbo machine. So what are the parts of a turbo machine which we have already seen yesterday in the previous class? There was one inlet, there was one outlet. So the fluid should, so what will happen in this actually? Fluid or the working fluid will get in and the working fluid goes out. Now the fluid, how we are going to measure this fluid in other, you try to measure in terms of mass. That is mass flow rate, so many kg per second. So if my mass flow rate at the inlet and mass flow rate at the outlet both are same, so that is called as your steady flow systems. Already we have seen this. When the mass flow at the inlet and the mass flow at the outlet both are same, that is 2 kg per second of fluid of mass over a period of time. So such a system I call that is a steady flow system. What is steady state? The properties, the say velocities, all those things at any given point of a time. That means your property doesn't change with respect to time. At any given condition, if I try to measure the properties at inlet, say let it be internal energy, let it be velocity, whatever it may be. pressure, whatever, at any given point, if I try to measure it, so if the properties doesn't change with respect to time, I call that as steady state condition. Now, once we return this control volume, let's write the steady flow energy equation. Steady flow energy equation. So in short form, we call this as SFE. So what is this actually? It is the energy available at one end and should be balanced with the energy available. That means what is it actually? If you might have studied in your Bernoulli's equation, fluid mechanics. That means the energy is conserved for a that the flow through a maybe what a divergence what it should be for flow between or energy between two is conserved in this equation. But here we try to speak in terms of energy levels. So if I try to write the energy equation, what we already studied. So if I try to write it actually, so it is I have Q on one side, and then I have the mass flow rate. I have internal energy, that is U1 plus P1 into V1 plus your capital V, that is your velocity V1 square by 2 plus Z1 into G. I'm writing right in terms of energy levels. Now this U1 and P1 I can write it as H1. On other side, at the exit I can write it as m dot into U2 plus P2 V2. This is your H2 or your V2 square by 2 plus Z2 into G plus your W dot is actually it is work done per second, that is your power. Now already we have seen that in most of the turbo machines, what we try to do, whether it's a compressor or a pump or whatever it may be, we don't want to see any heat loss. What we want is, we don't want this Q to be it should be negligible, very negligible. So the Q should be the, in an ideal condition, this Q should be m dot into H1 plus V1 square by 2 plus Z1 into G is equal to m dot into H2 plus V2 square by 2 plus Z2 into G plus your W dot. So this becomes my equation. So now, so what is this actually? If I try to write in terms of W, see, most of the turbo machines we try to write in terms of W. So if I try to write W dot is equal to your mass flow rate into H1 minus H2 plus V1 square minus V2 square by 2 plus Z1 minus Z2 into G. Okay. So what will be the unit actually? This will be joules per second or your watts. Now look at this actually. What is this quantity? This is your change in enthalpy. And what is this actually? This is change in your kinetic energy. Then what is this actually? It is change in your potential energy. So whatever we have studied, what are the study for energy equation? We have seen that we do have this kind of energy. So we have enthalpy, change in enthalpy, we have kinetic energy, we have potential energy. Fine. So in your enthalpy, I do have flow energy. That is your P into V. Now, most of the machines, what we see here, this is your general expression. So let me call this as expression number 1. Most of the turbo machines. Suppose if my axis is horizontal, that means I'm going to keep my turbo machine something like this. So suppose this is my turbo machine, okay, and if I try to put my datums, it is Z1 is equal to Z2 what will happen? Your potential energies are negligible. But if I try to keep it like this, okay, if I try to keep my turbo machine in this, that means inclined at one particular point. So then if I try to measure with respect to a particular point, so if I call this as Z2 and if I call this as Z1, so here the potential energy can't be neglected. Okay, if I try to, maybe some of the bulk turbines we see, which is used for tidal power plant, which is used in tidal power plant. So I can't keep it horizontal. It has to be at some particular angle, maybe 3 degrees or 4 degrees. There a slight potential energy will be there. But if I keep my turbo machine horizontally, then what will happen? Your potential energy is negligible. Now, what is the purpose of your kinetic energy? See, there are certain machines, maybe some of the machines, maybe your machines working on complete pure reaction. In that case, your kinetic energy V1 and V2 almost they are same. So fluid enters at some 10 meters per second, fluid exits at some 10 meters per second. So in that case, we have some extreme cases where changes in kinetic energy, changes in potential energy. So this happens most of the times in case of steam turbines also. Okay, some of the steam turbines, that is reaction steam turbines and all. So if for example, if only potential energy is negligible, that's case one. Case one, if change in potential energy is 0 approximately, that means it is negligible. Then what will happen to your work done expression? It is W is equal to m dot into H1 minus H2 plus V1 square minus V2 square by 2. If it is, let me take another case. Case 2, if both potential energy and your change in kinetic energy are negligible. So what I'm left with actually, I'm left with only your W is equal to m dot into H1 minus H2. So I will be able to only note, or I will be able to calculate my work done only with respect to enthalpies. So steam turbines, what we have actually at a particular pressure expansion. So steam enters the turbine at some 40 bar and so much of temperature, maybe to 800 degrees Celsius. Superated. So here, when I speak of enthalpy, your condition of the steam also matters. Then H2 is the condition of the steam at the exit. If it is, I'm speaking for one particular stage. If it is for more multiple stages, again, then I have to go with that. That's a different scenario. But here, whenever I have this kind of a situation where the potential energy and kinetic energy are negligible, then I have to deal with only your enthalpy. Okay. This is about your compressible fluids. What about for an incompressible fluid? So this is the case. So if I call this as equation number 2, I call this as equation number 3. This is one particular case. If I'm dealing with incompressible flow machines, so for an incompressible flow machines, what are the incompressible flow machines? That means the changes in my densities are negligible. Never ever tell that the density is constant. That means, what is it actually? If I call 1 as the inlet, 2 as the exit, that means your density at 1 and density at 2, they are almost same. The variations in my density or the variation in my specific volumes are negligible. Under these conditions, there is one peculiar thing that's going to happen. That is, when you have your density changes are negligible or the thing, your internal energy also may be of the same order. That means your IE, we call it as delta U or delta E, is almost 0 for this condition. When you have such condition, so what will happen to my SFE? What will happen? So if I try to write my steady flow energy equation, regular expression, so SFE becomes what I can write actually. I'm going to eliminate the U factor. That is, I can write it as any FU is already removed because of my, there should not be any heat losses. So I can write P1 into V1 plus V1 square by 2 plus your Z1 into G is equal to m dot into P2 into V2 plus V2 square by 2 plus Z2 into G plus your work done. So what are the this thing here? Q is equal to 0 and your U delta U is equal to 0 or negligible. U1 is equal to U2. So negligible. So under this condition, I have got this kind of an expression. Now the same thing, we also know that your V is equal to reciprocal of your density. That is, I can write the same equation, I can write in terms of density. That is P1 by rho 1 plus V1 square by 2 plus Z1 into G is equal to m dot into P2 by rho 2 plus V2 square by 2 plus Z2 into G plus your W. Now, what I'm going to do actually here, rho 1 is approximately equal to rho 2. So that's the condition what I have. So rho 1 is approximately equal to rho 2. So I can write in terms of W, that is work done, that is W dot work done per second. W is equal to m dot into P1 minus P2 by rho. That means it's approximately equal to single density. Fine. Then this I can write it as V1 square minus V2 square by 2 plus Z1 minus Z2 into G. This becomes my expression. Okay. Now if you want further simplification, if you want, so let me call this as expression number 4. So further simplification, I can do that, just multiply by rho throughout. Fine. If I try to multiply rho throughout or take the rho to the left hand side, if I do that, then what will happen? The same expression I can write it as mass flow rate into P1 minus P2 plus rho into P1 square minus V2 square plus rho G into Z1 minus Z2. That also can be written. So I can write in terms of rho. Okay. Or this itself is sufficient. P1 minus P2 by rho. So now, if you try to look into this particular thing, okay, if you try to write that particular thing, so W dot is equal to m dot into P1 minus P2 plus V1 square minus V2 square by 2 plus rho G into Z1 minus Z2. What is the advantage of doing that actually? Already we know the definition for stagnation pressure. So by definition for stagnation pressure or the total pressure, what we have, how it is defined? It is defined as P naught is equal to P plus rho into B square by 2. Already this we have find a definition in your fluid mechanics course. Now, can I simplify this particular expression? That is, if I call this as phi, can I simplify expression phi and write it in the form of stagnation pressure? I can write it. So what I can do, it is W dot is equal to your m dot. I can write P1 plus rho into V by 2. One quantity minus this as rho into V2 square by 2, fine, plus rho into G into Z1 minus Z2. Now what is this actually? I can write it as P01, and this I can call it as P02. So the work done expression for an incompressible fluid, I can write it as m dot into, that is P01 minus P02 plus rho into G into Z1 minus Z2. I am calling this as expression number 6. Okay. So this is the expression for your incompressible fluid for a work done expression. Now this can be positive or negative depending upon what type of machine it is. It's a compressor or a turbine. Now what is this actually? This is your potential energy. The same suppose my delta P is negligible. Then what will happen to your W? It is equal to P01 minus P02. So we are seeing the set of expressions. Okay, what is this actually? I can call this as delta P0. Or what is it actually? Change in stagnation pressure. So if you look at for a compressible fluid, what we had actually, if you neglect the potential energy kinetic, it was with respect to enthalpy. So now I can clearly see that yes, if my potential energy, my kinetic energies are negligible, for a compressible flow machines, it may be with respect to enthalpy, and for an incompressible flow machine, it is with respect to pressure, that is the stagnation pressure. Even stagnation pressure can become static pressure if my velocities are negligible. So velocity at the inlet and velocity at outlet both are same, then this can get, if my, so the same condition, let me write that condition also. So this can be equal to m dot into P1 minus P2 if V1 is equal to V2. So what will happen in this case? My dynamic component, so dynamic component of your pressure becomes the same. I have only the static points. So the expressions, mathematical expressions, what and all will derived for this is only with respect to odd ideal condition. That is your first law of thermodynamics. So when I try to apply this first law of thermodynamics for your compressible flow machines and for an incompressible flow machines, all are with respect to work done. That is work done per second. That is in terms of watts. So it can be power producing machine or power absorbing machines. If there are any questions, I am ready to take them. You can type in the chat box. As simplified, if you try to refer to any of the textbooks, this may be a little bit complicated, but I have tried to simplify as much as possible, so it becomes easy for you. Fine. So if there are no questions, I think I can move towards applications with respect to second law of thermodynamics. Okay, fine. Applications of second law of thermodynamics. Okay. Application of second law of thermodynamics to turbo machines. Okay. When we speak of second law of thermodynamics, the two things that comes to our mind actually. One is entropy and the second one is efficiency. But the third thing is also there, that is your absolute temperature. See, as I think I was teaching thermodynamics for you, I have been telling you that temperature is from zeroth law of thermodynamics. Temperature was defined after second law of thermodynamics based on the absolute temperature. But from the turbomachinery point of view, two things are very important. One is your efficiency. Okay, what is this efficiency? In a layman's language, efficiency means your output by input. So what is the output from the machine and what are you are supplying to the machine? That means what is it actually? Here it is actually work done by heat supplied or energy supplied, whatever it may be. So if it's a hydraulic turbine, it's energy supplied. Work done by energy supplied. If it's a maybe some kind of a thermal turbo machines, so where gas turbine stays with respect to heat actually. So what is the energy you're going to supply to the steam? All those things comes into picture. The second thing that comes into picture is actually is your entropy. What is your entropy? Already we have defined that the change in entropy is nothing but it is del Q by T for any reversible thing. So del Q is nothing but your heat. Whatever heat you are going to supply at a given absolute temperature for a reversible process. Only that I am calling it as change in entropy ds. And for all other processes, this entropy keeps on adding up. And the third quantity, so which I keep telling that is the absolute temperature, which came into existence after your definition of your second law of thermodynamics. One is efficiency, the second one is your entropy, and the third thing is your absolute temperature. Now, what we have been doing actually, so if I try to consider the first law, everything was ideal. I never consider the losses. But when I come to the second law, I need to consider the losses, or that means your actual conditions. The actual condition is considered. So when I consider the actual conditions, it is always less than your ideal conditions. So your actual by ideal will give what is called as efficiency. Or if you speak, maybe the two things are very important. So at any given point, I should not violate these two things. One is your Clausius statement, and the second one is your Kelvin-Planck statement. So these two thermodynamic laws. So that means second law only. One for the heat engine, other one for your refrigerator or heat pump, whatever it may be. So whatever your turbo machines also should be able to obey this law. Now when I speak of losses, in turbo machines, let us look into the losses in turbo machines. Losses in turbo machines. Okay. Let me say, for example, I have a rotor or whatever it may be, and on this I have some kind of a blades, all those things. Okay, what I'm trying to do is, and the fluid is flowing over it. So the fluid is flowing it. So the fluid is flowing here. So what will happen when the fluid is flowing? There can be a little bit of eddies formation. So there can be a little bit of eddies formation. There can be a little bit of formation. So these are the things which will be called as energy dissipators. That is, there can be eddies, or there can be, whenever there is a small change in the pressure drop, there can be a little bit of turbulence. And also, we are dealing with real fluids. The real fluids will have viscosity. That means they are always resistance to flow. There is always a resistance to flow, and all these three things combined together, I call it as internal losses. Internal losses. All these things, they take away the energy. They take away the energy. That means they will try to dissipate it. Okay. Now, there is a second thing. So this is about your first. If I try to look at it, when I'm trying to speak of real fluids, see, the fluids are flowing over the surface. Fine, agree. In the fluid, see for example, I have the, let me take a vane blade or something. Okay, this is my vane blade. The fluid is flowing like this. Okay, if it is a ideal fluid, what will happen? Simply it will flow. There won't be any friction over this. There won't be any friction. But if I speak of real fluid, and there is a little bit of viscosity, this fluid will stick onto the surface. So what type of, so there could be, because of this particular thing, there can be what is called as skin friction. Okay, where the skin friction are there, where are the possible things, skin friction? This can be on the vane surfaces or blade surfaces. Fine. Or this can be between rotor. Fine. This can be with respect to rotor shaft. So wherever the fluid comes in contact with a particular surface, there is always a little bit of skin friction, and this skin friction is mainly because of the presence of viscosity or real fluids. We are dealing with real fluids. Okay. This is one type of losses. Okay. Now, third type of loss. So I've been telling you that, see, this is my turbo machine. So this is my rotor, whatever it may be. The fluid enters at some velocity v1. It's a turbine. Let me take it as a turbine. Ideally speaking, the kinetic energy should be completely absorbed. That means at the exit, when it goes out, actually, when it goes out, your V2 should be 0, or it should be very, very negligible. The fluid enters at 10 meters per second. It has given all the energy to the turbo machine, and it's going out of 0 velocity. So that is a very ideal condition. But what will happen? Fluid enters at some 10 meters per second. It goes out at 1 meter per second, 2 meters per second. What do you mean by it? Your kinetic energy is not completely converted or completely absorbed. So what type of losses that comes in actually? It is called as kinetic energy loss. So what is it actually? As I told, it enters at V1 square by 2 at inlet, and it goes out at V2 square by 2, which is at exit, which is not equal to 0. It is not equal to 0, which should have been 0. Fine. Then other than this, actually, other than this, see, these are the three main losses. Other than this, if you look at it, so what type of machine we are dealing with? We are dealing with a mechanical machine. There can be some kind of a friction between. So there is a mechanical friction. A mechanical friction. This may be because of the bearing. Because the whole shaft and all should be mounted on some kind of a bearing. Whatever may be the kind of bearing you put, whatever the quality of it actually, but still there is a little bit of friction between your rotating parts, the shaft and your bearing balls or whatever it may be. Fine. Then you are providing the casing, you are providing the absolute, whatever maybe you have the veins and your casing are provided at most, maybe the least possible clearance. Least possible clearance, that those clearances are in terms of 1/10 or 1/100th of a millimeter, whatever, all those things you will provide, there will be some kind of a leakage. Okay, one is a mechanical friction, the other one is your leakage. What will happen? That means the fluid enters at the Q1 at the inlet, and it goes out at Q2 at what is it actually? Q2 means, which is always ideally speaking, ideally Q1 and Q2. But what will happen here? Q2, which is less than your Q1. So there is a delta Q, which is Q1 minus Q2, which is lost. This is the fluid loss. So I can speak in terms of volumetric efficiency. I can speak in terms of volumetric efficiency. So volumetric efficiency, ideally speaking, it's very hardly we can tell that it's 100%, but it will be few percent, it will be 95%, it will be 96% also. That means that all these losses contribute to a factor that your turbo machine efficiencies. So I can calculate, based on these losses, I can calculate the efficiencies. Now, if I speak of efficiencies for a turbine, okay, efficiencies for a turbine. Okay, so let's try to explain this in terms of putting a block diagram. Okay, Now, I do have energy available with the fluid. So, energy available at the fluid. That means the fluid comes into your turbo machine. What is it actually? If this is my turbo machine, that is my rotor or whatever it may be, this is my shaft. So these are my blades and all. Fluid enters. So this is the energy available at the fluid. So then what type of losses I can expect? I can expect rotor losses. Fine. I can expect the rotor losses here. If I expect, I can write it as rotor losses. After rotor losses, there is some amount of energy available here. Okay. You have some rotor losses, then the fluid will see this is energy. Energy available at the rotor. Energy available at the rotor. That means to this particular point. At this particular point, if I call this as 1, so some rotor losses, all those things and all. Then there is energy available here. Then I can put some kind of a block and tell that I do have some other kind of losses. What is it actually? This can be your mechanical losses. Okay, this can be your mechanical losses or frictional losses. I can call that as frictional losses. Then what will happen? Then the energy will go to your shaft. Energy available at the shaft. That means what is the energy that goes to this particular point? If I call this as energy available at the fluid as 1, energy available at the rotor as 2, the energy available at the 3, maybe shaft as 3. So if I take the ratio of any of these components, I can clearly write the efficiency. Now, let us define the first one, that is your hydraulic efficiency or blade efficiency. It is hydraulic efficiency. It is actually 2 divided by 1. That is energy available at the rotor to the energy available at the fluid. That means what are the things I am going to lose in the blade or vane or whatever it may be. I am calling that as hydraulic losses, or whatever may be the energy in that particular thing, I call that excess in terms of hydraulic efficiency. Now if I define the second kind of efficiency, that is called as the mechanical efficiency. Mechanical efficiency. So I can write it as it is equal to your energy available at the shaft to energy available at the rotor. Energy available at the shaft to energy available at the rotor. So if we call this as 3. So 3 by 2, it becomes mechanical efficiency. Now the third quantity, what is it actually? Anyhow, we are not defined here in terms of energy. So from inlet C, say for example, the fluid enters at some inlet with Q1, it goes out with Q2. Fine. So now I want to define the efficiency, that is your volumetric efficiency. What is the volume of fluid that is lost? It is actually Q1 minus Q2. Then what is the volume of the fluid that is left actually? It is Q1 minus of delta Q. Are you getting? So now if I speak in terms of volumetric efficiency, okay, I can write it as is equal to your Q1 minus delta Q. What is available fluid divided by Q1. This is for an incompressible fluid. If it is for a compressible fluid, instead of discharge, I can write in terms of mass per. That is m dot minus delta m divided by m dot or m1, whatever it may be. So now I can write in terms of hydraulic efficiency, I can write in terms of mechanical efficiency, I can write in terms of volumetric efficiency. Now, most of the machines we try to express in terms of overall efficiency. Overall, the product of your hydraulic efficiency, your mechanical efficiency, and your volumetric efficiency. Say for example, my hydraulic efficiency is 90%, your mechanical efficiency is 85%, and your volumetric efficiency is 0.95%, then this will be 0.9 into 0.85 into 0.95. So this number I may get around 0.7 or 0.8. So the overall efficiency of, so when we speak of this kind of efficiency,